Hi guys, welcome to Multiverse. Today we are going to take a look at our friend the Batman. Most specifically, today we are going to take a look at 12 Batman costumes that you can recreate in this universe online. Basically, it's going to be a mixture of Elseworld costumes, alternate reality, and possibly a few others. And it doesn't even include the one you're looking at right now. Also, it's not going to include the Batman Dark Knight's Metal suits. These will require their very own videos. And there's probably also a whole bunch of other Batman related look that we're not going to look at. So enough stalling around. Let's get started with number 12. So number 12 is inspired by a little comic called Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Essentially, it was a Batman story that happened during Victorian Age. And it's a story where we have Batman facing the evil Jack the Ripper. There was an animated feature not too long ago about Batman Gotham by Gaslight. But if you get the chance, I would strongly suggest try and read the comic. It's a one-shot comic, and it's all kinds of awesome. And it has some fantastic artwork by Mike Mignola. There was a sequel to Gotham by Gaslight called, I think it was called Batman Master of the Future or something like that. It was masterfully drawn by the late Eduardo Barreto. Sadly, it's not quite as good as Gotham by Gaslight, but it's pretty darn close. There's probably a compilation with both stories in it, so if you can get the chance, I would strongly suggest get your hands on those comics. Number 11 is a little costume called the hellbat. Basically, it's a suit of armor that was created for our friend Batman to go fight the evil forces of Apocalypse. I'm simplifying the story a bit because I'm trying to keep this video from being 3 hours long. But here we can have a pretty close approximation of the hellbat suit of armor. It probably should look a bit more like armor than it does right now. But again, within the limitation of this universe online, this is about as close as I'm able to get to that look. Obviously, with a lot of those looks, I'm going to use the Stalwart Defender chest piece. That is the chest piece that allows us to have the biggest emblem possible. I probably made a version of this look in a past video, but now I have a somewhat better pair of gauntlets to use in order to be able to recreate the style for our little hellbat friend. Number 10 is a look called Batman 3000. It's not really an Elseworld, it's I guess an alternate future in the New 52. When they created the New 52 at some point, they created this comic called Justice League 3000. And basically, it's clones of the Justice League in the year 3000. It's pretty much that simple. I only read a couple of issues, I haven't read the whole storyline. But basically, this is about as close to the Batman 3000 look as I was able to get. I had to get some Speed Demon gloves and boots, and I had to use the belt of the evil Owlman, but this is pretty darn close to the look of the character. The bat emblem should probably be a bit bigger, but again, within the limitation of this universe online, the Stalwart Defender chest is pretty much the biggest bat that allows us to have pretty much the biggest bat emblem that we can within the limitations that the game has. Number 9, I've recreated the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman, or the Tim Burton Batman if you prefer. Basically, in order to be able to achieve that look, obviously you need to be able to use the stealth material. And the stealth material is pretty pricey to get, so it's pretty hard to get the stealth material. But if you're one of the lucky few who were able to get the stealth material, you can recreate a pretty darn good version of the 1989 Batman. I created a video with this look some time ago, but since then I had a much better pair of boots that fit a lot better with the style, and also I have a much better emblem. Here we have the emblem of the drowned that allows us to get as close to the 1989 Batman emblem as we can. Basically, we can have a nice Batman emblem with the moon behind it. It doesn't look exactly like the Batman emblem from the 1989 movie, or I should say the classic Batman emblem, because that is what the movie was using. But again, within the limitation that we have, it's pretty darn close. It's as close as we can right now.
You don't know what it's like when you go away. It gets dark, so very dark. And then, at night, the wolves come.
Number 8, we have the Azrael Batman. At some point, Batman was replaced by a character called Azrael. Basically, the evil Bane broke Batman's back, and instead of asking Dick Grayson to take the mantle of the Bat, somehow Bruce Wayne decided to ask this character called Azrael. His name was Jean-Paul Vallée, but he already had a secret identity called Azrael. And when he became Batman, they sort of redesigned Batman to be a weird mixture between Batman and Azrael. So it gave us a pretty weird looking Azrael Batman. It had pretty much all the cliche of the 90s costume you could think of, like a huge armor, big spikes. He had those huge gloves that were very impractical. Within, again, as usual, within the limitation of DC Universe Online, this is about as close to the Azrael Batman as I was able to get. I may have tried to recreate this look some time ago, but now with the Lex Luthor chest piece, with the Green Lantern belt, and of course with the gold material on the shoulders, I had a few extra pieces of style that I didn't have in the past to try to recreate the Azrael Batman. Number 7, we have the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. It comes basically from a story from the Silver Age. In the Silver Age, there was plenty of stories of Batman who would go into space and fight evil aliens, or the aliens would come to Earth and Batman would actually fight them. There was quite a lot of weird and bizarre and fantastic stories. Pretty much a lot of science fiction stories that would actually happen within the Batman comics, either the Batman comics or the Detective comics. And one of those stories was Batman going into space. He went to a planet called Planet X, and he met the Batman of Planet X, which was somehow called the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. If you guys ever watched the show Batman the Brave and the Bold, there was an episode where they pretty much recreated the story from the Batman of Planet X. And it's a pretty awesome episode. I think I created this look previously in a previous video, but again with new styles like the Allman boots or the Captain Cold shoulders, I was able to refine the look a little bit. And the same also with the emblem. And you can see why I'm using the Stalwart Defender chest whenever I can, because otherwise the emblem can get pretty small sometimes. But with the Stalwart Defender chest, it allows me to have a much bigger emblem. Number 6 is the Batman armor from the Justice series by Alex Ross. Basically, there was this series called Justice. I think it was 12 issues. And it was masterfully painted by Alex Ross. I think someone else did the pencil. The name escapes me right now. And I completely forget who actually wrote the story. But basically, they retold a somewhat Silver Age type of story with the Justice League. And at some point within the story, the entire Justice League gains some weird armor. Let's say like that. So pretty much everyone in the Justice League gained some sort of armor within that story, and the armor that Batman was using was highly inspired by the Batmobile from the 60s. I forget if it was an Elseworld or just a story told in the Silver Age time period. Either way, it was a pretty awesome story. And the armor that Alex Ross designed for Batman in that comic was pretty darn cool. So again, within the limitation of DC Universe Online, this is as close as I was able to get. Number 5 is Batman from Red Rain. There was the storyline, it was an Elseworld, which was a story where somehow Batman becomes an evil vampire. I have to admit, I never read that comic, but the comic has been popular enough that even though I never read the comic, I still know about that story and about how Batman became a vampire at some point. There was other storylines in the past where Batman would actually become a vampire, but this one was popular enough that even though I had never read the comic, I'm quite well aware of it. Sadly, the area around the mouth should actually be skin colored, but again, within the limitations of this universe online and within the way the actual Batman Beyond Call is made, putting some skin color around the mouth, not really an option. Basically, it's pretty much the traditional Batman costume, but with the cape that sort of becomes these huge bat wings. But I thought it was a cool enough version of Batman to include in this video. Number 4 is Batman from Batman Speeding Bullet. So instead of landing in Kansas and being found by the Kent, Superman actually landed in Gotham, actually landed close to Wayne Manor, and he was found by the Waynes instead. Obviously, he was raised by the Waynes, and sadly, when the Waynes were we all know the fate that happened to the Waynes, and when that happened, of course, just like Bruce Wayne, Superman decided to become the Batman. So basically, we had, not unlike the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, we had a Batman that had the powers of Superman. Again, it pretty much was pretty darn close to the classic Batman costume, but in this case, the full face mask actually works for that character. That's pretty much how the character was. The character really had a full face. There's a few details that aren't quite exactly right, but again, that's a pretty darn close. That's as close as we can get within the DC Universe Online. Another Elseworld Batman, although it wasn't really for an Elseworld Batman comic, it was more for an Elseworld JSA comic. It was the Batman from the comic JSA The Liberty Files. In the storyline, the story is set in World War II, and there's this whole spy intrigue that is woven into the story, where some of the evil villains that the JSA were fighting were actually some evil Axis agent that the JSA had to fight. Although at first it wasn't quite the JSA, it was like Batman, Hourman, and I forget the last one. Was it Mr. Terrific? It's been a while since I read that comic, so... But within that comic, we had a pretty cool version of Batman, which kind of looked like what you're seeing right now. Again, the details aren't quite exactly right, but it was pretty much a very retro version of Batman with those night goggles, or those sort of goggles that the character had and all that. But here, this is pretty darn close to what the character did look like in the comic. Number 2, we have the Batman of Earth 2. I didn't plan it like that. It's just one of those happy accidents. On Earth 2, there was Earth 2 also had a Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. We're talking about Earth 2 from the New 52. But sadly, the Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman were sadly killed in the very first issue of Earth 2. But later on, there was a new Batman that made an appearance. And it turns out that in that universe, Thomas Wayne was never dead. And he decided to become the Batman at some point once Batman disappeared. Well, once Batman died. Although it's not where the idea first came from. We had seen Thomas Wayne become the Batman previously, which we're going to take a look in just a minute. There was a few versions of Batman in the Earth 2 comic. I didn't do them all because some of them either are too difficult to reproduce or didn't really look like what the comic actually was looking like. But for this version, this is pretty darn close to what the character looked like in the comic at some point. I toyed with the idea of doing some sort of honorable mention, but I won't do that. I have other videos planned, so whatever version of Batman you did not see in this video, odds are I have a video planned already for that. As I mentioned, there's the Dark Knight's Metal Batman that I'm planning to include in a future video, but there's I will probably make a follow-up video with a whole bunch of other Batman costumes when I get the chance. And number one, I went with the Batman from Flashpoint. Basically, there was this event called Flashpoint that was supposed to be a Flash-related event, but it ended up being much more than that. It ended up being the event that pretty much rebooted the DC universe, and that led us to the New 52. So the old universe was gone. It was replaced after the event from Flashpoint. The old universe was replaced. The old DC universe was replaced with the New 52 DC universe. And also, it is where pretty much the idea of having Thomas Wayne be Batman. That's pretty much where it came from. That idea could probably come from an older comic from like the Silver Age or something like that. But from what I understand, Thomas Wayne being Batman, that was the first time I saw that. And actually, there was a story in the Silver Age, or actually maybe even the Golden Age, where actually Thomas Wayne was the Batman for one comic, but it was nothing like what they did with Flashpoint. So within the pages of Flashpoints, Thomas Wayne was Batman, because in that universe, when the Wayne family were actually attacked in an alley, it's Bruce Wayne who actually was killed instead of his parents. And in that universe, Thomas Wayne became Batman, and Martha Wayne went crazy, and she became the Joker. And here we can recreate a pretty darn good version of the Flashpoint Batman. You had like something pretty close to what you're seeing for the emblem. You had like this bat emblem with a tiny moon, a tiny red moon behind the emblem. And ironically enough, this emblem is pretty darn close to the actual emblem that Batman was using in Flashpoint. Pretty much anything that was yellow in the classic Batman costume was replaced to be red instead. He had those spiky shoulders. Like the cape was pretty much spiky around the shoulders. He didn't have really actual shoulders. But again, we do what we can within the limitations that we have. So again, this is pretty darn close to what the Batman looked like in Flashpoint. There was also an animated movie called the Flashpoint Paradox, I think. And of course, Flashpoint was also used in the Flash TV show. I think it was the first episode of season 3, I think. And of course, there is the upcoming Flashpoint movie that I'm sure some of you guys know about. And that is pretty much it for now for the 12 costumes of Batman. I could literally make a whole bunch of other Batman costumes, but I thought we could start with 12. And odds are I'll probably make a follow-up video at some point with a whole bunch of other Batman costumes. And I could do that with quite a few characters. We could do a whole bunch of Superman costumes. We could do a whole bunch of... there's quite a few other characters. So anyways, as time goes by, I'll try to make a few more of those videos. We'll see how it works out. So that's pretty much it for now, guys. So as always, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.